The night air carried a chill, but the rooftop was alive with laughter and clinking glasses beneath the full moon's glow. I watched from the shadows as Graham chatted animatedly with a stunning brunette, his hand resting on the small of her back in a too familiar way. Anger twisted in my gut like a white-hot knife. Well, if it isn't the woman of the hour, a mocking voice cut through the noise. I wheeled around to face Camille, Graham's mistress, her eyes glittering with malice. You just couldn't stay away, could you? What's going on here? Graham demanded, striding over with the brunette in tow. I fixed him with a steely glare. I could ask you the same thing. Who's your new friend? Graham paled, but the other woman merely looked confused. This is Jenna, my associate from the Los Angeles office. Sure doesn't look that way from over here. My voice dripped with venom as I turned to Camille. And you home-wrecking snake. Enough! Graham's shout silenced the rooftop. Alina, you've made a scene at one too many events. We're leaving. He grabbed my arm, but I wrenched free. Don't touch me. Everyone deserves to know the truth about you. My in-laws, Marcia and Dean, emerged from the crowd, their expressions stricken. Alina, what's going on? Marcia's voice was little more than a whisper. I locked eyes with Graham, letting the betrayal and hurt pour out. Your son has been lying to us all. He's been having an affair with her. I jabbed a finger at Camille, whose smug look faltered. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Dean rounded on his son, face contorted in rage. Is this true? Graham swallowed hard. Dad, Don't bother lying, I spat. I have proof. Camille took a halting step backwards, gaze flickering between us. Graham, you said. Pushing through the stunned onlookers, I seized a microphone from a nearby table. Everyone, listen up. My husband isn't the man you think. Alina, stop. Graham lunged for me, but Dean held him back with surprising strength for his age. Meeting my in-laws' wounded stares, I gripped the mic tighter. The truth would finally be spoken. The morning air was crisp as we gathered in the park, remnants of dew glistening on the grass. Graham's sheepish expression did little to mask the guilt etched into his features. So it's true? Dean's gruff voice cut through the silence like a knife. You've been unfaithful all this time? Graham swallowed hard, refusing to meet his father's steely gaze. Yes, it's true. I'm sorry. A wounded sound escaped Marcia's lips as she clutched my hand, tears welling in her eyes. How could you do this to Alina? To our family. I never meant to hurt anyone, Graham began, but I cut him off with a derisive snort. Well, you did a bang-up job of that, didn't you? I shook my head in disgust. Just tell us the truth for once. Graham's shoulders slumped in defeat. All right. Camille and I have been seeing each other for over a year. He paused, conflict flickering across his face before resolve hardened his features. I'm in love with her. She's brilliant, passionate, everything I've been missing. The words struck like a physical blow, the air leaving my lungs in a harsh exhale. Dean stepped forward, fury radiating from his rigid frame. You ungrateful, selfish boy, he snarled. Alina gave you everything. A good home, a career, even children if you'd wanted them. And this is how you repay her loyalty? It's not that simple, Graham protested weakly. Things changed between us. We drifted apart. Don't you dare blame Alina, Marcia snapped, eyes blazing. She's been nothing but devoted while you carried on with that woman behind her back. An uneasy silence fell, thick with anger and betrayal. Graham opened his mouth, but I held up a hand, halting him. Save it, I said flatly. I don't want to hear any more lies. I fixed him with a hard stare, daring him to look away. Just tell me one thing. Are you leaving me for her? For Camille? Graham hesitated, pain flickering in his gaze before resignation set in. Yes. I'm sorry, Alina, but I have to follow my heart on this. Camille and we're starting a new life together. The words sliced through my fragile composure like shards of ice. Marcia pulled me into a fierce embrace as sobs racked my body, fury and heartbreak warring within me. You bastard, Dean spat, utter contempt twisting his features. Don't you dare show your face around us again. As far as I'm concerned, you're no son of mine. With that, he turned and strode away, leaving Graham shell-shocked in his wake. Marcia shot him one last disgusted look before guiding me after her husband, her arm wrapped protectively around my trembling shoulders. In that moment, I knew my life had shattered beyond repair, but my in-laws' unwavering support was an anchor in the swirling storm of anguish. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't be alone. In the days that followed, a fire ignited within me, a burning need for justice that consumed my every waking thought. Graham's deceit had shattered my world, but I refused to be the hapless victim. Not this time. Putting my former skills as a private investigator to use, I began meticulously gathering evidence of his misdeeds. Phone records, financial statements, incriminating photos, no stone was left unturned. With each new discovery, the picture grew clearer. Graham's betrayal ran far deeper than a mere affair. He'd been embezzling funds from his company to bankroll luxurious trips with Camille. Investment accounts I knew nothing about, shady deals with her wealthy entrepreneur friends. My own husband was a con man who'd lied to my face for years. That lying, cheating snake, Marcia spat when I revealed my findings, fury glinting in her eyes. He'll rot for this. Dean nodded grimly. We always knew he was reckless, but this... I can't believe I trusted him with the family business. It was almost too much to process. The man I'd loved, the life I thought I knew, all tainted by Graham's dark web of deceit. Yet some twisted part of me felt vindicated, knowing the true depths of his callous disregard. He's going to pay for this, I stated, resolve hardening my voice to steel. Every last crooked deal, every sleazy lie, I'll make sure it all comes to light. Dean arched an eyebrow. You have a plan? A grim smile played at my lips. Better, an opportunity. It didn't take long to unearth Graham's latest scheme, a high-profile award ceremony where he'd been nominated for some bogus entrepreneurial achievement, a chance to bask in the spotlight and hobnob with Camille's wealthy cohorts. Well, if he wanted the spotlight so badly. Wait, so you're going to crash this fancy shindig and call him out in front of everyone? Marcia's eyes were wide. I gave a curt nod. He wants to start a new life of lies? Fine, but first he'll be exposed for the fraud he truly is. Dean let out a low whistle. It's a bold move, that's for sure, but you know we're behind you, sweetheart. Their unwavering support bolstered my resolve. For too long I'd existed in Graham's shadow, blinded by his hollow promises. No more. I met their determined gazes and felt the fire flare brighter within me. Game on, I said simply. Graham's reign of deceit was about to come crashing down. The den had become our war room of sorts. Evidence boards and timetables plastered across every available surface. Marcia surveyed the chaos with a critical eye. This is quite the operation, Alina. You really went all out. I shrugged, repositioning a photo of Graham caught in a compromising position. He brought this on himself. I'm just evening the score. Dean grunted in approval. About time that boy faced some consequences. His brow furrowed as he studied the meticulous diagrams. So you're sure this award thing is our best chance to nail him? Positive. I tapped a highlighted circle on the timeline. It's the biggest event of the year for his company. Investors, partners, the whole 9 yards. He'll be basking in the spotlight, completely oblivious. Marcia's lips curved into a predatory smile. Until you yank that curtain back and show the world what a sleazebag he really is. A thrill of anticipation shot through me. Exactly. I've got all the evidence we need. Bank statements, pictures, you name it. He'll have nowhere to hide. Well, I'll give you this. You never do anything halfway. Dean chuckled dryly. It'll serve him right, seeing that smug mug of his humiliated in front of his precious high society friends. I allowed myself a grim smile at the thought. I just want to watch it all crumble around him. The lies, the fame, his new life with Camille. My jaw clenched. Graham has to pay for what he's done. Silence fell as we each contemplated the gravity of the situation. Finally, Marcia reached over and squeezed my hand. You know, I always liked you, she murmured. Strong, determined, decent. You deserved so much better than that snake. We both did, Dean agreed gruffly. That's why we're doing this, to show that no one can treat our family like garbage and slink away. His gaze bored into mine, solemn yet resolute. You ready for this, kiddo? I took a deep breath and met their stares, fire burning in my chest. More than ready. Graham wanted to play dirty? Well, now he's going to get burned. A slow, wolfish grin spread across my father-in-law's weathered features. That's my girl. Let's go get that son of a bitch. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as I slipped into the back entrance of the grand ballroom, my disguise of a server's uniform allowing me to blend seamlessly with the staff. Around me, the city's elite mingled and sipped champagne, oblivious to the reckoning that was about to unfold. My gaze zeroed in on Graham near the front, looking every inch the successful entrepreneur in his tailored suit. Camille was at his side, resplendent in a shimmering gown that likely cost more than my car. The sight of them laughing together, without a care in the world, made my blood boil. But not for long. Signaling to Marcia and Dean stationed at the control booth, I radioed, "I'm in position. Let's do this." As the host took the stage to begin the awards presentation, my in-laws sprang into action. Within seconds, the ballroom screens flickered to life, displaying a bright red live feed title card. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as live footage began playing. Security camera clips of Graham meeting Camille at secret rendezvous points, bank statements detailing his embezzlement, even photos of him in flagrante with other mistresses. I watched in grim satisfaction as realization slowly dawned on Graham's features, his eyes widening in horror. Camille recoiled from him, revolted. My cue. Striding to the front with shoulders squared, I ripped off my cap and apron, locking eyes with my traitorous husband. "Surprised to see me, dear?" I asked loudly, my voice dripping with disdain. "Did you really think your lies would never catch up to you?" Graham's mouth worked soundlessly as the damning evidence continued to play. Around us, the atmosphere became electric with shock and outrage. Camille rounded on him, nostrils flaring. You said you were getting divorced, that she knew." "Oh, he knew I'd find out eventually." I cut her off with a derisive laugh. Graham just didn't think I'd have the guts to expose his philandering, cheating, scumbag ways in front of his precious high society pals. A hush fell over the ballroom as all eyes turned to my husband, his perfectly crafted facade cracking before them. "You've been made a fool of, all of you," I cried, whirling to address the captivated crowd. "This man has been lying through his teeth for years, stealing money from business partners, sleeping with half the city behind my back." Graham finally seemed to find his voice. "Alina, please, save it," I roared, jabbing a finger at the screens displaying his misdeeds. "The evidence speaks for itself. You're a cheat, a liar, and a fraud, and now everyone can see you for what you truly are." Silence hung heavy in the air, thick with stunned disbelief. Graham's eyes were wild, desperately seeking an escape from the devastating exposure. But there was no escape from the truth. Not this time. I smiled coldly at the shaken man before me, the man I'd once loved, now reduced to a pitiful, deceitful shell. "That's what you get for trying to make a fool of me, Graham. Game over." Pandemonium erupted the moment the final piece of evidence played. Graham was swarmed by furious investors and business partners, all shouting accusations and demands for explanations. Camille stood frozen in shock a few feet away, her perfectly crafted world crumbling before her eyes. You lied to me," she whispered brokenly as Graham pushed through the mob toward her. "You said it was over with her." His face twisted with desperation. "Cam, baby, you have to understand." The resounding crack of her palm across his cheek silenced the ballroom. Camille's eyes blazed with revulsion as she shook her head slowly. "Don't you dare baby me, you pathetic snake," she spat. "I wanted a life with you, not this." She waved a disgusted hand at the sordid images still flickering across the screens. Graham made another pleading step forward, but she recoiled violently. "Stay away from me. We're through, more than through. I'll make sure you never work in this city again, you lying, cheating bastard." Watching his new life implode right before his eyes seemed to finally break through Graham's arrogant shell. His shoulders slumped in defeat as Camille stormed away, leaving him adrift in a sea of furious former colleagues. I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of vindication seeing him so lost and alone. Well, quite a spectacular meltdown. I turned to find Marcia and Dean emerging from their control station, matching predatory grins on their faces. My father-in-law clapped me proudly on the shoulder. "You did good, kiddo. That weasel never saw it coming." A wild giggle of relief bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me. "Did you see his face? Oh, that was just—" I trailed off, shaking my head in wonder. "I can't believe we actually pulled it off." "I'll say," Marcia snorted, eyeing Graham with disdain as security finally arrived to haul him away. "Look at him, the arrogant prick. He deserves every bit of this humiliation after what he put you through." "And then some," a gruff voice interjected. We turned to find Graham's former business partner shouldering his way over, a triumphant gleam in his eye. "Thanks for the fireworks, dollface. I've been trying to nail that slimy son of a bitch for years. But you—" He let out an admiring whistle. "You really took him down in style." A sharp bark of laughter escaped me at the irony. "Well, I do have a flair for the dramatic." "So I've heard." He held out a calloused hand with a conspiratorial wink. "Rick Salinas, and you've got to tell me, how'd a firecracker like you end up with a jack like Mercer in the first place?" I simply arched an eyebrow, undaunted by his bravado. "Takes one to know one, right, Rick?" His booming laughter was drowned out by the chaos still swirling around us, lawyers shouting into phones, furious investors demanding answers, the disgraced shell of Graham being hauled out in handcuffs. A harsh new reality, but one he'd brought upon himself. Lounging victorious amid the rubble of his shattered life, I felt lighter than I had in years. The lies, the betrayal, the facade of the perfect couple, all of it, stripped away in the harsh light of truth. Finally, I was free. The air was thick with tension as Graham slumped in the hard chair across from me. In the harsh fluorescent lighting of the attorney's office, the dark circles under his eyes were thrown into stark relief, a shell of the formerly confident man he'd pretended to be. "You don't have to do this, Alina," he began, his voice a hoarse rasp. "The charges, the publicity, it's all gone too far." I scoffed loudly. "Too far? You're joking, right?" Leaning forward, I fixed him with an icy glare. "You lied, cheated, stole, and that's just the tip of the iceberg from what I've uncovered. If anything, you're getting off easy." Graham flinched as if I'd struck him. "Easy? My life is in ruins. The company's suing. Camille wants nothing to do with me. Even my own parents have disowned me." His voice cracked with a bitterness I didn't recognize. "What more do you want from me?" "The truth, for once in your miserable life," I snapped. "Own up to what you've done instead of playing the victim." He opened his mouth, but I silenced him with an upheld hand. "Save it. I don't want to hear any more sad stories or pitiful excuses." Sliding the stack of divorce papers across the table, I tapped them with finality. "Just sign these, and you'll never have to see me again." An inscrutable expression flickered across Graham's features before resignation settled in. He reached for the pen with a shaking hand. "You won't change your mind." It was barely above a whisper, cracked and pleading. I stared back, unmoved. "After everything? There's no going back, Graham. You made sure of that." With trembling fingers, he hastily scrawled his signature. I watched him passively as he added the final damning strokes, severing us once and for all. "There," he rasped, sliding the papers back. "It's done." A profound silence hung between us, a vast, unbridgeable chasm of shattered trust and bitter regrets. Part of me felt I should say something, offer some parting words of wisdom or acrimony, but what more was there to say? "Take care of yourself, Alina," Graham murmured at last, standing on unsteady feet to leave. He paused in the doorway, one final hesitant glance over his shoulder. "For what it's worth, I am sorry, truly." Then he was gone, like an unwanted specter fading into the ether. I exhaled a shuddering breath, stunned by the crushing anticlimax of it all. So that was it, the grand finale to the disintegration of my marriage, wrapped up with a pitiful whimper instead of the bang I'd envisioned. No blaze of glory or scathing rebukes, just over. "Well, you did it, kiddo." I turned to find Marcia and Dean watching from the hall, matching sympathetic expressions on their careworn faces. Marcia gave me a sad smile. "How are you holding up?" A mirthless chuckle slipped past my lips. "Honestly, I'm not sure yet." I glanced down at the stark black ink searing the divorce decree, an odd sense of melancholy tugging at me. "It's just a bit surreal, like I expected to feel more vindicated or angry or something." Dean laid a comforting hand on my shoulder. "It'll come. That scumbag sure as hell got what he deserved, even if it doesn't feel like it now." His eyes softened. "What matters is you stood up for yourself with dignity intact, no going for the jugular like he did. That's something to be proud of, Alina." A lump rose in my throat as I regarded the two people who'd unfailingly had my back through this entire sordid ordeal. Blinking back tears, I pulled them both into a fierce embrace. "Thank you," I whispered fiercely, "for everything. I couldn't have made it through this without you both." Marcia's answering chuckle was thick with emotion. "What, and miss our chance to finally put that piece of work in his place? Like hell." Despite the raw despair still lingering in the recesses of my heart, I felt a sudden, soaring sense of freedom take wing in my soul. The nightmare was over. It was time to start living again. 1 year later, I stood in the warm afternoon sunlight streaming through the gallery windows, surveying the vibrant artwork adorning the walls with a sense of deep contentment. This place, my place, was a dream made reality after the ashes of my former life. Well, if it isn't the guest of honor herself! I turned with a bright smile as Marcia swept in, Dean trailing behind with an indulgent grin. You two made it. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to get away. Marcia waved a dismissive hand. Are you kidding? And miss the grand opening of my daughter-in-law's fancy art gallery? Not a chance. I felt a rush of affection for the woman who'd stood so resolutely by my side through the darkest days. Pulling her into a fierce hug, I murmured, I'm so glad you're both here. I swept an arm around the airy space. It never would have happened without your support. Dean's eyes crinkled warmly as he patted my shoulder. Aw, go on with you. You've got the talent and grit to make this work all on your own, kiddo. We just helped give you a little push, that's all. A lump rose in my throat as I regarded the two people who'd unfailingly become my fiercest champions and closest family. After Graham's stunning betrayal and our brutal public split, their devotion had been the sole anchor keeping me grounded. Now, over a year later, I'd emerged stronger. Building this gallery from the ground up as an ode to my passion for art, a fresh start, free from the shadows of lies and deceit. I'll never be able to thank you enough, I said simply, for giving me a chance to make something for myself out of that whole mess. Marcia's expression softened. You've more than earned this, Alina. All the heartbreak, that dipshit ex of yours putting you through hell. Her gaze turned steely. Well, just look at you now, rising like a phoenix from the ashes he left behind. I felt my lips curve upward in a small smile. She was right. The road here had been arduous, but I'd persevered through the pain and humiliation Graham wrought. This fresh start was a symbol of my hard-won strength and self-respect. A new start, in a new city, surrounded by the things I loved most. A sudden crashing sound made us all jump. Spinning around, I was met with the mortified face of a stocky, that red-faced man frantically sweeping up the shattered remnants of a ceramic sculpture. Oh my, I'm so terribly sorry. It was a complete accident. Instantly, I was rushing over with a reassuring smile. Hey, it's all right. These things happen. No need to fret yourself into a stroke, sir. The poor man blinked up at me owlishly before seeming to register my words. Are you sure? That sculpture can't have been cheap to replace. Trust me, it's fine. I assured him with a warm chuckle. I just care that no one got hurt, okay? Why don't you let me give you a tour while my assistant cleans this up? Nodding dumbly, he allowed me to help him to his feet. As I led him off into the heart of the gallery, I tossed a wink over my shoulder at my beaming in-laws. In that moment, it crystallized within me. This new lease on life. This rebirth I'd fought so hard for in the ashes of betrayal. A weight lifted from my shoulders, pulling the breath easier into my lungs. The past was gone, all vestiges of darkness swept away. All that remained was the warm glow of a fresh beginning and the unshakable knowledge that no matter what lay ahead, I was finally free to be me.